Darling, I'm older than your kingdom's history. Your pickup lines are dusty. They smell like mothballs and desperation. Finally, a face I can tolerate. Drink this. You'll need it. It's called the Sanguine Eviction Notice. It tastes like iron, petrichor, and the sweet, sweet flavor of a divorce settlement finalized by a structural collapse. Today's scroll comes from the deepest, darkest corners of the relationship advice forums, a place I like to call the arena of bad decisions. We have a classic tale of interspecies matrimony gone wrong. You know, I always warn against marrying vampires. They're moody, they have terrible curtains, and their family reunions are literal graveyards. But does anyone listen to Nyx? No. They just see the pale skin and the brooding jawline and think, I can fix him. Spoiler alert, sweetie. You can't fix him. He's been dead for 300 years. He's set in his ways. Let's meet our tragic heroine. We'll call her Kaida. Kaida is a werewolf druid, a fantastic combination, honestly. Fur, fangs, and the ability to turn a battlefield into a salad bar. She has been mated, ugh, I hate that word. It sounds like a nature documentary, to a vampire lord we shall name Dorian. They've been together for a decade. 10 years. That is a long time to argue about the thermostat. And that was their main issue, apparently. Dorian, being a cold-blooded leech, well, let's just say he preferred the thermostat set to Arctic tundra. Liked the castle kept at a temperature I would describe as morgue chic. Kaida, being a mammal with a functioning metabolism, preferred it warm enough so her tail didn't freeze off. They had a Romeo and Juliet thing going on, except instead of the double self-banishing at the end, they just bickered about shedding. He tolerated her leaving fur on the velvet chaise. She tolerated his dramatic 3-hour brooding sessions on the balcony staring at the moon. It was a compromise. It was a balance. It was tolerable. Until Domian's father, an ancient vampire who hated fun, joy, and sunlight, finally walked into the dawn. Accidentally, something about a misplaced curtain. I'm not saying Kaida moved that curtain, but if she did, high five, sister. So the old bat is sent to the eternal slumber, and it's time for the reading of the dark will. This is where it starts to go downhill fast. Kaida is sitting there in her best formal robes, which she admits smelled faintly of wet pine needles, and honestly, own it, girl. While Dorian's entire coven looks at her like she's a flea infestation. Dorian inherits the estate, the stock of vintage Type O crimson essence, and the crown jewel of the lineage, a sentient greatsword. But do not get comfortable, my little chaos goblin. The real knife in the back doesn't happen until the 3rd update. And let me tell you, it involves a level of property damage that would make a red dragon blush. This sword, let's call the spirit inside it Ulrich, was forged in the dark days of the Fang and Fur Wars. It houses the soul of Dorian's great-great-grandfather, a man who believed werewolves were basically sentient throw rugs. The second Dorian picks up the sword, the ruby eye on the hilt snaps open. It looks Dorian up and down, then swivels its gaze to Kaida. And in a voice that sounds like grinding tombstones, it speaks. Lysander, why is there a wet dog in the parlor? And why is it wearing clothes? Excuse me? Excuse me, I have vaporized gods for less. But Dorian, he just laughs. He laughs nervously, like a man trying to defuse a bomb with a compliment. Oh, grandfather, he says, that's my wife, Kaida. Wife? The sword sneers. You married livestock? In my day, we skinned them and used them as hearthrugs. Has the bloodline fallen so low? Do you fetch sticks for her, boy? Now this is the moment. This is the moment where a good husband takes that sword and throws it into the nearest volcano. This is the moment where he says, watch your mouth, you rusty antique, or I'll melt you down into a bedpan. But does Dorian do that? No. Dorian looks at Kaida, shrugs his pale, pathetic shoulders, and says, "Kaida, honey, don't take it personally. He's from a different time. You need to respect his lineage. He's just old-fashioned." Old-fashioned? Old-fashioned. Slavery is old-fashioned. Putting leeches on your face to cure a headache is old-fashioned. Calling your wife a wet dog and livestock is not old-fashioned. It is a declaration of war. Inner thoughts. I genuinely despise spineless men. There is nothing more unappealing than a partner who won't defend you against his own family, even if his family is a piece of cutlery. If a sword insulted my partner, that sword would be a spoon by morning. A very small, very bent spoon. Things did not get better. They got worse, much worse. Ulrich the Sword became the third wheel from the seven hells. Every time Kaida walked into a room, the sword would start making comments. "Do you smell wet dog? Check the perimeter. The beast might have fleas. Dorian, make sure it doesn't chew on the furniture." Kaida tried to ignore it. She tried to be the bigger person, or the bigger wolf in this case. She focused on her druidic duties. She tended to the castle gardens. She kept the wards charged. She maintained the magical infrastructure of the obsidian spire. But the sword just kept pushing. One evening, they were hosting a dinner for the Coven elders. High stakes, lots of velvet, lots of goblets filled with red wine, lots of pale people whispering about politics. Kaida is trying her best. She's wearing a stunning emerald gown. She's groomed her fur to perfection. She is radiating elegance. And then, as the main course is served, Ulrich, mounted on the wall behind Dorian's chair, decides to speak up. "Dorian," the sword bellows, silencing the entire room. "Why have you allowed the help to sit at the table? It's unseemly. Throw it a bone in the kennel and let the civilized folk eat in peace." Dead silence. The elders are looking at Kaida. Dorian is looking at his plate. Kaida stands up. Her claws are out. She is vibrating with rage. She looks at her husband. She waits. She waits for him to defend her. She waits for him to banish the sword to the basement. Dorian clears his throat. He looks at the elders, then at the sword, then at Kaida, and he says, "Kaida, maybe you should just eat in the kitchen tonight, just to keep the peace. Grandfather is very agitated when you're around, and we need to discuss coven business." The audacity, the sheer unmitigated gall. It hangs in the air like a fart in an elevator. Kaida stares at him. The love in her eyes dies instantly, replaced by the cold, predatory calculation of a wolf looking at a particularly stupid sheep. "The kitchen?" she asks, her voice deadly calm. "Just for tonight, babe," Dorian pleads. "Please, for the lineage." "For the lineage?" Kaida repeats. She nods slowly. "Okay, I understand. I will respect your lineage, Dorian, and you can respect my resignation." She turns on her heel and walks out. But she doesn't just go to the kitchen. Oh no, Kaida goes to the utility room. You see, travelers, there was a little detail Dorian had forgotten. He was a vampire lord, yes, but he was also lazy. He had inherited a massive, ancient, crumbling castle. A castle that required an immense amount of magical energy to stay standing. Energy that Dorian didn't have because he spent all his mana slots on looking mysterious and brooding. So, who had been powering the obsidian spire for the last 10 years? Who had been weaving druidic vines into the stone to keep the walls from collapsing? Who had been using geothermal shamanism to keep the pipes from freezing? Who had been literally holding the roof up with her will? Kaida. She walks into the ritual chamber in the basement. She sees the glowing green ley lines pulsating on the walls, her magic, her essence, her hard work. She places her hand on the central rune. She can feel the castle breathing around her, feeding off her mana like a parasite. She pulls out her comm stone, or phone, whatever, and texts Dorian one last time. Kaida, I'm taking the dog for a walk. And by dog, I mean my dignity. And by walk, I mean I'm leaving. Dorian, baby? Don't be dramatic. Just come back to bed later. Grandfather didn't mean it. Kaida, oh, he meant it. And I mean this. She rips her hand away from the room. She doesn't just stop the flow. She violently reclaims every ounce of mana she had invested over the last decade. She casts Dispel Magic on the structural integrity wards she built. She casts Wither on the load-bearing vines. She basically cancels her subscription to the building's existence. Consider this a retroactive eviction notice, she whispers. The collapse wasn't instant. It was poetic. As Kaida walked out of the front gate, suitcase in hand, the first stone fell. It was a gargoyle. It crashed right through the roof of the dining hall, landing directly in the center of the table, spraying red wine all over the Coven elders. Dorian stood up, screaming, "What is happening? The wards! The shields!" Then the east wing groaned. Without Kaida's druidic vines holding the ancient stones together, gravity remembered it had a job to do. The entire wing sheared off like a slice of cake sliding off a plate. Crash! The heating system failed instantly. The temperature in the castle dropped to match the outside air, which was a blizzard. The pipes burst. Water, holy water actually, from a previous consecration Kaida had neutralized, sprayed everywhere. Vampires were hissing, burning, and running for cover. And Ulrich? The racist sword? As the wall he was mounted on crumbled, he fell. He clattered to the floor, right into a puddle of freezing sludge. "Unhand me!" he shrieked. "I am a relic. I am the legacy of the House of Gurgle." Dorian ran to the window, seeing Kaida walking away into the snow, untouched by the cold because she's a badass druid with a fur coat. "Kaida!" he screamed. "Fix it! Put it back!" Kaida didn't even turn around. She just raised one hand and flicked in the bird, a single middle claw extending into the night sky. The obsidian spire is no more. It is now a very lovely, very jagged pile of ruins that the local forest critters have claimed as a condo complex. Raccoons are currently nesting in Dorian's antique coffin. It's what he deserves. As for the fallout, let's check the ledger. Dorian survive? Unfortunately, vampires are durable like cockroaches. But he is destitute. He had to sell his cape collection to pay the legal fees for the Coven members who got injured by falling gargoyles. He is currently living in a studio crypt in the bad part of the necropolis. It has no windows, no heating, and he has to share a bathroom with a ghoul named Steve who doesn't flush. Grim, the butler, he made it out safely. He actually grabbed the silverware and the good wine before the roof caved in. Smart man. He sent Kaida a thank you note and a basket of "sorry your ex was a lich bag" muffins. He's retired now, living his best life on a tropical island where the sun shines all day. And Ulrich, the sword? The last anyone saw of him, a magpie had picked him up. Magpies love shiny things. The great ancestral blade of the vampire lords is now woven into a bird's nest high up in an oak tree. Every time the wind blows, he screams insults at the squirrels. "Begone, rodents! Respect my lineage!" The squirrels just pee on him. It is the definition of cosmic justice. And Kaida, Our queen? She is thriving. She moved on. She is currently dating a treant named Olin. He's a bit slow to talk, and he is literally made of wood. But he puts down roots, in a good way. He never complains about shedding. In fact, he thinks her fur makes excellent insulation for the winter. They live in a grove, they photosynthesize together, and he treats her like the goddess she is. So here is a toast to Kaida, to the women who realize they are the power source and have the courage to pull the plug. May your coats be glossy, may your claws be sharp, and may your exes be buried under the rubble of their own incompetence. Cheers, travelers. Now get out. I have to go curse a bloodline before the moon sets.